it's crazy how everything has a password to it. Like, for example, when you go on a person's phone, the first thing you're most likely going to expect is that they have a password. And a lot of apps are starting to incorporate things where there's passwords built into it. But if someone told me that if someone knew one of my passwords for one thing, they will have access to almost everything. And one thing I do not want leaked out there is my eyes only on Snapchat. In this video, let's just say I got my eyes only leaked. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy but super embarrassing and also pretty illegal story. Yes, officers, if you're listening, please understand this is only a story time. I'm not trying to get arrested. In YouTube, I'm not trying to get in trouble with you guys because I love this platform. But overall, today is a really scary one, and it all starts off back when I was in grade 11. Now, in grade 11, I'm not gonna lie, I was known as a player. I know it sounds kind of crazy, and a lot of guys claim to be players, but I was a pretty naughty dog. Like, I will say this, if someone had a real dog and me in the same room, I'd be the real dog. Because at this point, I'm not gonna lie, the amount of girls that I pulled back then were extremely concerning. Now, I know what you guys are already thinking. You guys are typing down in the comments below, oh, this is on his dreams. No, dude, I'm gonna be so for real with you. I won't lie to you. Most of the girls I pulled back then were not 10 out of 10s. So don't expect every girl that I talk about to be a 10 out of 10 unless I say she was. And most likely if she was, then I'm not gonna lie, most likely I did not pull her in the end game, and that's the only thing that really matters when it comes to pulling girls. Where it goes and if it leads to happily ever after. But enough about happily ever after, because in this story, I don't get one. In grade 11, I remember me being my player ways. One thing I was for sure of was that if anyone had access to my phone, I'd be in serious trouble. Not that I was doing anything illegal, it's just, I'm not gonna lie, I had a lot of girls on my phone and a lot of girls that I would message on the daily. No joke, I can easily say that I would send like Instagram reels or I would send TikToks to like 20 different girls and it would all be the same exact video. It was really weird, and on the same time, like now that I'm thinking back at it, like it was really a bad thing, because if those girls ended up just communicating even once, they would know that they're talking to the same dude. But surprisingly, no matter how many girls I stacked on top of my phone that I was talking to, 100% like I somehow would get away with it. I don't know, I guess I believed I had some sort of aura that came along with my player skills, and it just led me not to get ever in trouble or caught. But let's just say I got humbled real quick, because I remember one time I was sitting in my social studies class, and as I'm sitting in there in my grade 11 year, I ended up looking outside at the window slit that most doors have when it comes to like, you know, when you're in high school and stuff. And I saw this girl walk by. Now, this girl that walked by, I'm not gonna lie, she looked actually attractive. Now, if I had to put her on a scale, I would say she was like a 7, 6 maybe, 6, 7. 6, 7. But overall, like, she was really attractive and I thought she was hot. So I'm like, you know what? Let's go stack another girl to put on top of my phone and, you know, let's just see how it goes. I remember I put my hand up and I asked my teacher, can I go to the bathroom? Sure, Mr. Baba, but be quick, please, is what she said. And I remember I ended up getting up, and first thing I did was try to walk up to that girl. I ended up walking up to her in the hallway and I saw her and I said, hey. She turns around and goes, oh, hi. Hey, how's it going? So my name's Bubba. I know who you are, dummy. Oh, you do? Cool. So, I mean, like, I mean, if you know about me, I mean, you down to, like, you know, pass me your Snapchat? Now, you guys are probably wondering, why are you asking a girl for her Snapchat and not her number? Now, I'm gonna be honest, in this day and age, no one asks for each other's numbers, okay? It seems like oldie. It seems boomer when you ask a girl for her number. I know it sounds crazy, but comment down below. What social media platform do you ask for when you walk up to a person you're interested in? Because for me, it was Snapchat, because that's where I stacked all my women back then. But overall, I remember when I asked her for her Snapchat, she looks at me and she's like, no. Definitely not giving you that. And she ends up turning around and just walking away. At that moment, I'm like, what in the world? Like, did I just get denied? So I remember I decided to walk up to her and I started walking backwards all cool like and talking to her, being like, hey, wait, so I'm confused. Why not? Have you ever heard no before? No, I have. I'm just wondering why no from you. Bubba, I know you're a player. Seriously, just stay away from me. And she keeps walking. Me, I kind of just stood there frozen and I'm like, wow, like she's not wrong, but at the same time, why do you know that? Like, seriously, why do you know that? And also, are you really worth me getting rid of all the girls that I'm talking to and just, you know, just give it all to you? I'm not gonna lie, it really bugged me when she said no, but I just went back to class and pretended I went to the bathroom. And, you know, when I sat down on my desk, I won't lie to you, it bugged me the entire day knowing that I got rejected by this girl. Like, it kind of made me embarrassed, and I don't feel that often, especially back in high school. So knowing this, I remember I kind of just like started thinking in my head, what's one way to really just, you know, prove to her that I'm worth it? Which sounds crazy and sounds kind of like simpy if you ask me, but yeah, I wanted to prove that I was worth, you know, her hitting me up or me hitting her up. So I remember I ended up going on different social media platforms trying to figure out what her name was and, you know, basically figure out who she was and why she was was so much better than me to reject me. And as I'm going through the social media, I remember I ended up finding her Instagram. And that's when I ended up sliding her DM saying, hey, how's it going? She ended up replying back like literally not even 2 minutes later, as if she was already waiting for me in her requests, and just ended up messaging me back saying, Bubba, I thought I told you no already. No, I get that, but like, what's going on? I remember she ended up like not answering for a long time. Actually, she didn't answer the entire rest of the night when I was home trying to figure it out. And going to sleep that night was one of the hardest things ever because I couldn't sleep. If anything, I would kept scrolling through her page as if I was like a stalker in the night. Like, it was really bad. So I'm just scrolling through her social media and I'm just like, you know, looking at old photos of her, looking at her when she was growing up and kind of just like learning about her. And it's crazy how much you can learn about a person just through their social media. If anything, it kind of terrifies me, but knowing that I'm literally just a Google search result away doesn't bug me as much anymore. But back then it kind of made me like, wow, this girl is apparently really interesting. So from that moment, I'm not gonna lie, I learned a lot about this girl. And some of the things I learned about her was that she was actually a pretty decent girl. Like, I could easily say looks wise, yeah, she's a 6 and a 7, and who she was and just everything about her was like basically a 10. I don't know, something about her page and just the way she, you know, does things like, you know, feed homeless animals to, you know, taking care of other people, and the fact that she's a family person made me really like her to the point where I even saw me in a relationship with her, which is crazy for me to say, and honestly actually kind of scary for me to say. But just something about this girl made me, I guess, kind of fall in love with her through social media, which, by the way, no one should ever do. Seriously, don't do anything I say in these stories, by the way. Trust me, it's just for dramatic effect. And back then I was a really hopeless romantic, so that didn't help out either. Anyways, I remember the next school day happened and I was super tired. I was so exhausted, but my mindset was like kind of like in the zone for me trying to like meet this girl and actually, you know, prove to her that I'm better. So I remember I decided to walk up to this girl during lunchtime. When I saw her, I walked up to her and I said, hey, like, how's it going? Baba, how many times do I have to tell you I'm not interested, is what she said. But then I looked at her again and said, listen, I was just wondering if you're down to help at the soup kitchen this Friday. If you don't want to, it's fine. I'm just wondering. She looks at me confused and she's like, wait, did you just say the soup kitchen? Like, you want to feed homeless people? Yeah, if you're down. I don't know. It's just something that I like to do. And I was wondering if you're down to do it. By the way, I've never done it before. And that was the only time I've ever done it with her. But I'll get to that. She ended up getting a smile on her face when I asked her, and she ended up saying that she was down. So I remember as days went on, me and her just kept messaging back and forth. I kept trying to flirt, but she kept like kind of not flirting back, but kind of was. I don't know. I guess she had her own way of flirting that was super innocent. But I tried to keep it tame. I tried to be cool about it. And I remember one thing led to another. On Friday, me and her, we ended up going to the soup kitchen together and feeding the homeless people. The whole time when we were there, we were just cracking jokes, having fun, and it was honestly a really good time. I don't know what it was, but I felt like my connection with her got better and better to the point where I remember after the soup kitchen, when I ended up picking her up in my car and driving her back home, I ended up asking her right before she got out of my car to go to her front door. And I asked her, hey, so I'm just wondering, are you down to go on like a proper date? At this moment, she opens the door and she just kind of takes a big breath in and sighs and says, Bubba, listen, I think you're a great guy, okay? And at that moment, I'm like, oh no, like I know where this is going. No, it's not that. It's just, listen, I know you're a dog and I know, you know, you're a player and a lot of girls have spoken, you know, kind of ill about you. And I'm not really interested about that. What? I'm not a dog. Why would I? Bubba, come on. Don't tell me that you don't talk to a lot of girls. What? I do, but like, I don't talk to them like that. Like, I don't talk to them anymore. By the way, I was completely lying at this moment. I'm not gonna cap. I was 100% lying to this chick. Like 101. Okay, well, Bubba, like, I don't know. I just can't trust you. And that's when she ended up getting out of the car and going inside. At this moment, what this girl was saying was completely valid and true. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie to you. I felt like a loser. Why did I feel like a loser? Because I put so much effort into trying to impress this girl that it just didn't end up working. I ended up going home that day and I kept thinking about what would I do to prove that I don't talk to many girls, until I thought of one thing, and this thing really made me ruin my life, if anything. But I ended up unadding every girl I had on Snapchat. Yeah, I unadded every girl I ever had, every single girl that I ever did the devil's tango with. I unadded right off the bat. I didn't want to risk anything. I didn't want to, you know, be still connected with those girls, and I wanted to prove a point. So I remember I unadded all these girls, and that's when I messaged her on Instagram and I said, hey, listen, I really like you, and I unadded every girl on my Snapchat for you. At this moment, she's like, no, you didn't. And I'm like, no, seriously, I did. And I took a screenshot of like the main like page where it shows like a bunch of like people's names of like who you messaged and stuff. And she's like, no, I don't believe you. Send me your login if you're telling the truth. Oh boy. When she asked for that, bro, I remember I froze. I froze and I was scared because I'm like, do I do this? Like, is it really worth it? I don't know why, but I guess love got the best of me being a hopeless romantic. And I ended up sending her my username and password. I sent it to her and she she logs in because I remember when I tried getting back into my Snapchat, I was already logged out. So 100% she logged into it right away when she got the email and password. And from there, she ended up basically like, I guess, going through things. I don't really know what she went through because I didn't have access to my own Snapchat at the time. By the way, I'm on Snapchat if you guys haven't already. Here's the username right here. Go ahead and add me. The stories are on there as well. And you guys get updated with my life a bit more. And it's kind of cool. Like, look at this room. Doesn't this look cool? You guys would have seen this on my Snapchat. But anyways, back to what I was saying. But from there, she ended up basically doing whatever she wanted to do on Snapchat. And then she ended up messaging me being like, you're disgusting. I said, how? I don't have any girls added on my phone. How am I disgusting? Is what I asked her. And from there, I've been just blocked. I didn't know what was going on. And I ended up just logging back into my Snapchat. And then from there, I ended up just like going through chats and stuff to see if she messaged anyone of the guys or, you know, anything. But nothing's changed. Everything looked the same. It wasn't until the next day I realized what she did. And this really broke my heart because I remember the next day I ended up going on my phone and I ended up basically, like, you know, messaging the boys being like, yo guys, like what's going on? And I ended up actually adding some of the girls back on my Snapchat that, you know, I had added previously and unadded for this girl. But since I never pulled her, I ended up just adding the girls back that I unadded. And when I did, I remember one of the girls ended up sending me a message. And this girl that ended up sending me a message wasn't the girl that I was talking to, but it was a totally different girl that was actually friends with the girl that I was trying to impress the whole time. And she sends me a video of my eggplant. And I'm like, wait a second. This video is only in one place and one place only. And that's in my eyes only. So how in the world? By the way, quick disclaimer. If you guys don't know what my eyes only is, basically it's a part of Snapchat where you can hide all your secret photos and it's password protected the same way your phone is protected. Like no joke, like here, I'll literally show you real quick. If you guys don't know what it is, basically this is what it looks like. If I put in my passcode, the 4 numbers that are in this, I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably get in serious trouble. But basically, Snapchat has that feature, and I remember I didn't think she would be able to get into it because it was password protected. But to be fair, my passwords back then, well, she knew the code for my phone, and it was the same code that I used for my eyes only on my phone. So I'm guessing that she just guessed my passcode and ended up figuring it out. But when I saw that, I freaked out, and I'm like, dude, there's no way she sent out photos from my eyes only to random girls. At this moment, I realized that my career of being a player was done. It was donezo because now everyone's gonna know how big my eggplant is. I thought this was gonna be like a big ruiner. So I remember I ended up like looking for her and I left class just to go find her. And I found her sitting in the lockers, just, you know, opening her locker, getting her books out. I walked up to her and said, did you really just send out photos from my eyes only? Oh, come on, Bubba. Don't be so embarrassed. Embarrassed? What you did was basically illegal. Like I could get the cops involved is what I told her, but she didn't care. She wanted me to feel embarrassed. She wanted me to feel vulnerable. At that moment, I remember I felt like my life was over. I even went to the bathroom and actually started crying a little bit. But it wasn't until one of my buddies ended up coming into the bathroom and he knocks on the door knowing that I was in there and says, yo, Bubba, there's some girls outside wanting to talk to you. Is everything good? At that moment, I wiped my tears because, you know, men don't cry. I don't know if that's actually true or not. Comment down below. But, you know, I basically wiped my tears to pretend I wasn't crying. And I go, yeah, let me go talk to him. I go outside of the bathroom and I see them standing there. And they look at me and they're like, Bubba, is it really that big? Yeah, the photo doesn't lie. And that's when I ended up getting their Snapchats. And then throughout the day, I ended up getting messages from Instagram, from other girls wanting to add my Snapchat. And from what I thought was supposed to be an embarrassing, vulnerable moment, it ended up leading me to adding more girls, and more girls wanted to add me, and more girls wanted to hit me up. And yeah, let's just say the whole thing ended up backfiring, and I ended up becoming more of a player, knowing that girls already wanted what they saw. In a way, I guess they were window shopping. Okay, that sounds really wrong and really illegal. And honestly, I think I've said enough in this video. I remember when I went to her place and I went on her computer, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing a secret file that was named Bubba. And when I clicked on it, I realized there was videos of me and her doing the Devil's Tango. And that's when I knew I got leaked. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another really insane, but I gotta say crazy story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 12 year. So I was graduating around this time, and honestly, a lot of crazy things happened in my grade 12 year, to the point where I'm not gonna lie, I don't think anyone could survive it. But I remember in my grade 12 year, there was one specific person in my high school that was really well known. And the only reason she was super well known was because, well, she was always like known for being in the cheer team, being one of the smartest girls in class. She was basically the goody two-shoes that was super attractive. And I remember one day I was walking down the high school hallway with my textbooks in my hand, and out of nowhere I ended up seeing her and she bumped into me. She ended up basically like hitting my shoulder, and I ended up dropping my textbooks to the point where she turned around and said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there." "Oh, it's all good. Don't worry about it. I could just pick it up. Here, let me help you." And I remember as we were picking up the textbooks, out of nowhere she looks at me and says, "Oh, I didn't know you were in this class." "What, art?" "Yeah, I'm just taking art class for, I don't know, just credits, I guess." "Oh, so you're not like into art?" "Well, I am. Here's some drawings I did." And I remember one of the drawings I showed her was basically a photo of, well, of like the human body. I don't want to get into details, but let's just say it wasn't really known as appropriate, but it was considered a form of art. I remember she saw the art and she actually said, "Oh, wow, this is really good. I'm really into the art of the human body." "Oh, that's cool." "Yeah, sorry, what was your name again?" "Oh, my name is Bubba." And at that moment, me and her, we actually ended up basically exchanging numbers, and we actually ended up deciding to hang out. It was really out of nowhere, and don't get me wrong, it was actually insane because a lot of people in my school knew about this girl, so me having a shot with her was really out of nowhere. But this is where things get insane, because I remember when I finally get to my next class, out of nowhere, my buddy ends up walking up to me. He walks up to me and says, "Bubba, bro, I saw you talking to her in the hallway, man. Like, are you guys like a thing now or something?" "Oh, no, we're just talking." "I don't know, man. She had that look in her eye like she liked you, you know what I'm saying?" No. You're overthinking it, bro." And at that moment, we ended up sitting down beside each other and working. And I remember throughout that entire class, she would always text me back to back as well, which, I mean, really showed that she liked me, until I remember when I pulled out my phone to see one of the text messages, there was a girl behind me that looked over my shoulder and saw that I was texting her. And then she ended up saying, Bubba, are you actually talking to her? Like, seriously? What's wrong with her?" "Bubba, you do know, like, all of her exes, like, apparently, like, disappeared." What do you mean?" "Well, like, they ended up, like, deleting, like, all their social media, and, like, they don't even go to school anymore. Like, I don't know what it is, but that girl causes trouble." At that moment, I was so confused because everyone's vision of her, you know, was this perfect girl, but now apparently she has, like, some dark secret that her exes apparently disappear. It really made no sense to me, and honestly, in my mind, I just thought that maybe this girl that was talking trash about her was just jealous that she was known as being Miss Perfect. But let's just say what ended up happening next kind of blew my mind, because I remember when lunch came around, I ended up walking down the hallway and she saw me walk by, and she actually ended up walking up to me saying, "Hey, Bubba, I was wondering, what are you doing after school today?" "Oh, I was just planning on doing homework." "Why?" "Oh, like, do you want to, like, I don't know, do some studying together? We can go to, like, a cafe or something." Yeah, I'm down, 100%. And as she walks away, she says, "Okay, cool, see you after school." At that moment, I was really excited, and my buddy was right beside me when all that happened, so he looks at me and says, "Bro, you have a date with her? Let's go, bro, look at you." And I remember I was super excited, but in the back of my mind, I still felt something was fishy. I wasn't sure exactly what. Something was still kind of triggering me, if that makes any sense. Going on with the story, I remember after school finally came around, and I ended up meeting up with her in front of the school. We ended up walking to the cafe because I didn't have my car that day for some reason. And when we finally got there, we ended up sitting down and started doing homework. But I remember as I was doing my homework, she kept staring at me in the most weirdest way, as if she wanted something. Now, don't get me wrong, the look she was giving me was common because, you know, I recognized that look anywhere. It was the look of her wanting to do the devil's tango with me. But the thing about her that was very odd was that it seemed like it was in a really bad way. Like she had ill intent to do something wrong. So I look over at her and say, "Hey, like, you okay? Like, is your homework too hard or something?" "Oh, no, I'm just, you know, distracted." "Distracted by what?" "Well, I don't know, like, you're cute." At that moment, I started blushing. This girl was complimenting me, asking me out, like, she's definitely into me. And at that moment, I'm like, you know what? Who cares what that weird girl said in my class? Like, honestly, she seems perfect. So I remember after a while, me and her, we decided to basically go back to her place. And when we did, I remember me and her, we instantly went to the bedroom, and, well, you guys probably know what I'm gonna say here, but we ended up doing the devil's tango. Things were going great. She was fantastic. She seemed experienced, and on top of that, she was just really entertaining to be around. Even afterwards, she got me a cup of coffee. Like, what girl does that? I remember afterwards, I ended up leaving the house because it was getting late, and I ended up leaving her place, and I started walking home. And as I was walking home, I recognized there was a car following me. Now, it wasn't any creepy white van. It wasn't anything, like, you know, that seemed sketchy. It was just a basic BMW that was following right behind me. And when I looked behind me, I kept, like, staring at it, and I saw it was some dude wearing a hat and sunglasses. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, there's no one in this planet Earth that should be wearing sunglasses and a hat at the same time. Like, it makes no sense. So that's when I decided to full on stop, and the car stopped right behind me, and I decided to walk over to the driver's side of the vehicle and told him to roll down his window. I remember he was nervous to do it, but then he ended up rolling it down, and he said, is there a problem here?" "Yeah, are you following me?" Maybe. Yeah. I I just have a question. Yeah, okay. What's your question? The girl the house you came out of. Did anything happen? What are you talking about? No, nothing happened. Why would you even want to know? 1 second. I remember he ended up parking the car and he ended up coming out of it and he took off his hat and sunglasses and it was just some basic ordinary dude that, to be honest, I kind of recognized because I think he went to my high school, but I wasn't sure exactly who this person was. And that's when he told me, listen, bro, this is gonna sound really weird, but the house you just came out of was my ex-girlfriend's, and like, I don't know, there's like some crazy stuff that happened. I just want to know if, like, you know, she showed you anything or like, you know, leaked anything. Leaked anything? What would she have to leak? Well, like, have you ever like been on her computer? No. What? Why would I go on her computer? Well, like, did you notice that the camera was on when you were like, you know, in her room? At that moment when he said, was the camera on, I started to panic because that can only mean one thing. And that's when I looked over at him and said, to be honest, I don't remember. Dude, good luck. He ended up putting his hat and sunglasses back on and he just drove away. At that moment, I ended up going home and I ended up calling my buddy and I ended up kind of like, you know, panicking to him, telling him like what's going on. And my buddy only said, bro, there's no way a girl would do that, man. Like, think about it. Like, she's like the perfect girl. You're getting in your head too much. Like, you understand that was an ex, and exes never have good news to say about their exes. Yeah, you're probably right, is what I told him. But the next day at school, things ended up getting weirder because I remember the next day at school, I ended up walking around the school hallway. And as I was walking down the hallway, I remember I saw a bunch of random girls just start looking at me weirdly. Like, don't get me wrong, girls look at me all the time, but the way they were looking at me was as if I was wearing nothing. Like, it was really, really weird. And I remember I looked at one of them and I started to walk up to them and they ended up running away. Not even like walking fast, like they actually ran away. At that moment, I knew something was wrong. So as I was heading towards my classroom to see my friend and talk to the girl that, you know, warned me about this girl, I ended up seeing the girl that I saw the day before, the girl that, you know, I did the Devil's Tango with, and she ended up walking up to me saying, hey, Bubba, like, what you up to? Nothing, just heading to class, that's all. Okay, you're acting kind of strange. Is everything all right? Did anyone say anything to you? No, I was just, you know, just doing my thing. Why? Is there something I should know? Oh, no, nothing at all. And that's when she ended up walking away. At that moment, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to show it because obviously I wanted to check what was on her computer. Ever since her ex warned me about that, I needed to figure out what was going on. So I remember I ended up yelling out to her as she was walking away and said, hey, what are you doing tonight, by the way? Nothing. Why? I mean, can I come over? At that moment, she smiled and she winked and said, of course you can, anytime. And she walked away. At that moment, I knew what my mission was. I just wasn't sure if I was going to execute it right. Because I remember after school that day, I ended up getting in my car because I actually brought my car this time and drove over to her place. And when we got to her place, we ended up going inside her bedroom. And the first thing I look at was the camera on her desk. And that's when I realized it was a motion sensor camera. So whenever someone would walk in front of the camera, it would turn on and start recording. At that moment, I ended up looking at her and I said, is the camera on? Oh, no, it's off. It just does that sometimes. It's really weird. Here, come here. Let's have fun. And right before we started doing the Devil's Tango, I look at her and say, do you have like a napkin I can borrow? Yeah, there's one in the bathroom. Let me go get it. And as she's going to the bathroom, first thing I do is I sprint over to her computer. I scroll through her computer and I saw there was a file named after me. I ended up opening it and I saw she ended up recording the entire time me and her were doing the Devil's Tango. And that's not even the worst part because I saw there was a group chat that was on her computer and literally no joke, she had videos posted to a group chat of a bunch of girls that went to my school and they all saw me and her doing it. At that moment, I realized my tape got leaked and I was in major panic. I remember she ends up walking in and she says, what are you doing on my computer? And at that moment, I looked at her and honestly, I didn't have enough time to get any proof of anything, so I lied about it. I looked at her and said, listen, I took photos of everything on that computer and I'm not gonna lie to you right now, the fact that you did all that was disgusting. So I'm gonna call the cops and show them this evidence I got if you don't delete all this right now. I remember she starts panicking and she starts deleting everything on her computer and her parents ended up walking in and asking what was going on, but since she was already deleting everything, I didn't see a need to tell them. And well, one thing led to another. I remember once I left the house, she ended up blocking me on everything and well, that was basically it. I'm happy that, you know, I managed to get everything deleted and help a lot of people, but still, sometimes you can never be too careful. All right, yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to another really insane story. So today's story is honestly something that happened to me back when I was in grade 10. It was one of the most insane moments of my life and I'm not gonna lie, it'll forever be memorable. And it all starts off when I was walking to my most hated class, math class. Now, I personally hate math class. class. Math class is the most annoying and boring and, well, suckiest thing in the planet. But knowing I had to do it, I remember one time I was going to my math class a bit early before school because I got in trouble for not passing my last test and I needed to retake it. And I wanted to do it before school because after school was the only time I had to go spend time with the ladies. Because, you know, to do the devil's tango. So I remember I ended up going to my class early. And when I entered into the classroom, I remember seeing my teacher that was actually very attractive. And luckily, one of the only reasons why I actually smiled going into math class. If you guys don't know, in grade 10, I had actually the hottest math teacher ever. Like, for the grade 10s, only a certain amount of people were able to get this math teacher. And luckily, I got put into her class, which was honestly amazing. And I remember every time I go into class, it was a sensation. I would stare at her cherries, stare at her amazing peach when she would write on the board. And when she sat down, that's where disaster began and I started looking at numbers. But that's not the point of the story. Going on, I remember when I went in early for this test I had to do, I was basically kind of stressed out. But before I entered into the classroom, out of nowhere, this guy ended up walking out. It was some weird guy with a camera and he looked really sketchy. I didn't know who he was, so I remember I looked at him like, "Are you a student here?" He looked at me, he's like, "Oh no, sorry. I just work on a side gig with your teacher. Sorry, I gotta go." And he ended up leaving. I didn't know who he was, but honestly, he was really sneaky and really awkward. But I remember I went inside the classroom and my teacher was buttoning up her shirt and I ended up walking up to her just doing the whole test. Now reminder, the guy that left earlier was a guy with a camera. So I obviously did have to ask her, "Hey, teach, who was that guy out there?" Like he just kind of went out kind of awkwardly. The teacher looks at me and says, "Oh, like just don't worry about him. He's just a guy I work with for a little side project I'm working on for the school." Okay. And I ended up going to sit down and doing my test. Now I found it really weird how she kind of hesitated when she was saying the word school, but I mean, it is what it is. Honestly, I never really questioned my teachers because school sucks in general, so why would I? Going on with the story, I remember after that school day, I ended up going home and I was playing Xbox with the boys. Me and the boys would always hop on Xbox, playing video games and doing the same old. And also, the girl that I was supposed to go do the devil's tango with canceled on me. Yeah, sucks. But going on, I remember when me and the boys were playing Search and Destroy on Call of Duty, my buddy ends up saying over the Xbox mic, "Yo, Bubba, you know you're really hot like math teacher?" Yeah, what about her? Dude, her first name is... Did you know that? Like, literally, look at her name in the yearbook. I remember I ended up going to my bookshelf and ended up pulling out the yearbook that was given to me last year, and I ended up seeing her first name. Her first name was a very similar name compared to everyone else, and at first I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool," and basically went back to playing Call of Duty. But then afterwards, my other buddy that was also in the Xbox party ended up getting his yearbook and said, "Yo, I'm not gonna lie, bro, her cherries look a lot bigger. Like, holy cow, dude." I remember I was like, "Wait, what?" And I ended up going back to the yearbook, pulling it off the bookshelf, opening it to her page, and I looked closely. Her cherries looked like they grew 20 sizes bigger than usual. Now at this point I was shocked. I'm like, okay, that's very weird. And me and the boys laughed about it all night, and then when I was going to bed, well, that's when I got into deep thought. Now I don't know about you guys, but I have this thing called bedtime thoughts. Basically it's like shower thoughts, except you get your best ideas in bed. Probably that's why I never sleep and end up staying up all night thinking about what videos I want to do. But I remember when I was laying down in bed, I had the shower thought. I had the thought to search up my teacher's name since I had her full name fully and figure out who she actually was. Because there's no way a teacher is just a teacher. And at this point in time, I think every human being has like an online presence. No matter who you are or what you are on social media. It's just common sense. Unless you're like an old grandma that never had a cell phone, then maybe you're not on there. But still, most people in this day and age have a social media presence. So I remember I ended up searching her full name on Google. Basically, Google was like the go-to thing. I don't use the Yahoo, Bing, DuckGo. I don't use any of those because I'm not a loser. But going on, I searched the name up on Google, and when I searched it up, I ended up finding a link. I remember the link was like www.onlyfans.com/her first name and her last name. At this point, I was like, dude, there is no way. I got so excited. Like, you guys have actually no idea. It's like searching up on the Devil's Hub your favorite star and instant like levitation. So I remember I ended up clicking on the link, and when I did, I ended up seeing a photo of my teacher in our classroom with her top off as like the cover image. I was so in shock, and I remember her OnlyFans only cost like $5, and that was my lunch money for tomorrow. So I was like, you know what? I might as well. So I ended up paying for it, which is the only time I would ever pay for an OnlyFans, by the way. Just gonna mention that now. And when I did, I ended up seeing everything. And by everything, I mean my teacher on desks, my teacher on the whiteboard. I even saw my my teacher literally bend over to the window. Yeah, I saw a lot of my teacher that day, and in the way that I would actually like to see her every day. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember my pants levitated, and obviously, I'm not gonna lie, I ended up doing my my thing. YouTube, don't demonetize me, but I beat the eggplant. Okay, let's just put it that way. A little bit of a TMI, but it's whatever. Now, obviously, after I did that whole thing, most people would be like, you know, texting their friends about it and showing it off. But the one thing I got worried about is that I didn't want her not being my math teacher anymore. I was worried that if I like screenshotted it and sent it to my friends and showed it off, that I found our teacher absolutely wearing nothing on the internet, she might lose her job, her career, and basically everything. One thing you guys gotta understand is that in high school, word goes around faster than ever. Girls talk and boys, they only talk when it's a real meme. So knowing this, I basically did not say anything. I kept it quiet. I didn't want to say anything. And I remember the next day when I went to school, I had to go to my math class early because the teacher wanted to give me the results I did from yesterday morning. I remember I ended up going in there. When I walked in there, I stood in front of my teacher's desk and I couldn't look at her the same. Every time I looked at her, I literally just saw all those photos basically on the internet. I couldn't think of her as like my teacher anymore like I used to. And every time I look at her, well, I'd just be looking at her cherries and just kind of smiling. And I won't lie, yes, my pants did levitate in front of my teacher, okay? It was really awkward. I remember she looked at me and I looked at her, and basically we both looked at each other. She was really weirded out by me, and basically she was like, Bubba, is everything okay? Like, you seem really off, as she's marking my test. I look at her and I'm like, so that camera guy yesterday, he's not really a side gig, is he? She ended up looking at me with one eye and she's like, wait, what? And I remember I looked at her with a smile. At that point, I knew she knew that I knew. Wait, that made no sense. I knew that she knew what I knew. Maybe that made more sense. Basically, she knew that I found out about her online internet thingy. And basically, I won't lie to you guys, she was panicking in the inside. I could tell because every time I looked at her, she was kind of shaking as she was marking my test. And I definitely did fail that test, by the way, but no matter what, she ended up taking the test, putting it in the drawer, and told me that I got an A. I was really shocked. I'm like, wait, I got an A? Like I passed? She looks at me and she's like, yep, you passed. Good job. Can we have a different conversation? And she makes me sit down beside her. I sat down beside her and she's like, listen, Bubba, I think you know what I know, and I'm gonna be honest, we need to keep it between each other. I like working at this school. I really enjoy here, and I don't want this to ruin our school relationship. I'm not gonna lie, the whole time when she said that, I was just looking at her cherries, bro. Like, I could not think of her the same. So I remember I told her, okay, you know what? Like, I'm fine with that. I really don't mind. I won't say anything at all. I told her that because, well, that was my original plan. I wasn't gonna tell anyone anyway because I didn't want her not being my teacher anymore. So I remember when the bell rang from math class, a bunch of students ended up walking in. And when a bunch of students ended up walking in, I basically like went and sat down at my desk. When I sat down at my desk, basically, I remember this was the funniest thing. And I'm not gonna lie, this was not good at all. I ended up going on my phone to use it for a calculator because I remember she was giving the lesson. And I had a friend whose desk was literally right behind mine. And when I opened my phone, the first thing it went to was her moaning in a video that I was watching her from. And oh my goodness, dude, my friend ended up looking at my phone and legit saw the teacher literally doing her devil's tango in the classroom on my phone as she was literally right in front of us actually teaching us a lesson. My friend in the back seat ended up freaking out saying, no way, is that her OnlyFans? Dude, what? Wait, ma'am, you have an OnlyFans? Oh no, I was so doomed. I was doomed. I was so sad and so upset at myself. And my teacher looked at me with major anger in her eyes. Like, I've never seen anyone so mad at me. It was so bad. Honestly, all I'm gonna say is that, you know, watch out what you watch on your phone, and searching up your teachers sometimes maybe not a bad idea. It really depends on what results you want to get. All right, guys, that is basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also follow me on Instagram. Like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.